This week, relive a dying soldier's determination at the Church of St. James and learn how to cope with life in the fast lane at the traffic training park. Structures around the ground make it quite clear that they have been here much longer than the generations which erected them. And indeed they have. This is the Church of St. James, Delhi's first and oldest church, consecrated more than 150 years ago. It is also familiarly called Skinner's Church, in memory of the man who built it almost single-handedly, Lieutenant Colonel James Skinner.
James Skinner, as you know, his father was an Englishman, but his mother was an Indian, and he never called himself an Englishman. He was 25 years old in the year 1800, and by that time he had already become a legend, and he was leading his own cavalry regiment. He hadn't named it as yet, and he had a very efficient band of people whom he led, and he was in great demand with the small Rajas and Maharajas to fight for them. In the year 1800, he was fighting a battle, but he was losing it, and he was lying almost dead on the battlefield for 3 nights. And due to some miracle, his life was saved, and he vowed that since God had been extremely kind to him, he would build a church, and not only a church, but also a temple and a mosque.
The mosque and the temple that were part of his vow, Skinner couldn't build. As it was, he was hard put to finish the church. But he did finish it, building it in the style of the Italian churches of the time. 5 years after it was completed, Skinner's life too came to an end. Not, however, his and his family's connection with the edifice. Not only are his own remains, true to his wishes, buried within the church, the grounds are replete with memorials to his friends and relatives.
Metcalf were his closest friends, and the 3 of them, whenever they were in Delhi, they were always seen together. And they are the only 2 exceptions who have been buried in this garden, because as I told you earlier, the burial spots were meant only for the Skinner family. And so Sir Thomas Theophilus Metcalf, you will find his tombstone there. Unfortunately, it has been vandalized and it has been damaged on more than one occasion. Even last week, somebody broke one of the lovely screen works that you find on his tombstone. So there are just 4 such panels intact at the moment, and we are thinking of removing them inside the church and preserving them. Now, so far as Fraser is concerned, his tomb is right in front of the church. He was murdered, as you know. That was a year before consecration of the church. So his tomb was already there. And his tomb was the finest that could be provided. And I am told, apart from the size, it was more beautiful than Taj Mahal because of its intricate work that was there. The tomb was smashed by the people during the time of the 1857, but after that it was possible to salvage some of it, and one panel was somehow we managed to do that.
To the north of the church building is the enclosed graveyard of the Skinner family itself. The splendid stonework on the gravestones and crypts here draws the grandeur to which the Skinners were accustomed. 21 years after the church had been consecrated, the sun over Delhi darkened and turned to blood. The war of 1857 ravaged the city, and Skinner's church was a witness and victim of the mayhem.
1857 was a very crucial year. The first war of independence, as we call it, had its effect on the church, and for 4 months the church was like a fortress. We had people here, dying people, bombs and bullets flying all over. The dome of the church, as you can see now, there is a ball and a cross. Exactly, there used to be a ball and a cross, but the bombing and shelling could not dislodge it. But a lot of bullets went through it.
Much of what the church was before 1857 was destroyed, but it gained enough in the years after to make it almost a museum, both of Christianity and of history. The Skinner family's links are visible everywhere, as is the connection with Skinner's horse. Celebrations of James Skinner's 200th birthday anniversary and his regiment's 175th had seen a guard of honor from Skinner's horse turned out in ceremonial colors in the church itself. There are many objects within the church which it is difficult to look at without awe. The splendid rostrum from which the sermons are given, with its embroidered Skinner's horse coat of arms. The brass lectern for the reading of lessons, glinting and glistening like gold in the dim interior. The painting of the prodigal son, quite appropriate for the church, in that its builder himself found God quite late in his life. Individual objects apart, the very interior of the church, with all its lights on, is a sight to behold. But the most beautiful aspects of the church are probably its 3 magnificent stained glass windows. Put up in memory of Lieutenant Colonel Skinner and the church's martyred chaplain, Reverend Jennings, these works of art are now suffering the ravages of time. But the church finds the cost of restoring them beyond its means. In fact, the costs of maintenance are what most affects the church, a monument in itself. Official help is not forthcoming. The secular constitution prevents it. So as the Reverend Lovis Joseph sits, as he has done for the last 45 years, to play at the almost 100-year-old organ, mixed with the hymn he plays, may be a prayer to save his church. Traffic on Delhi's roads is today in the sort of whirlwind state that can easily sweep away the careless. Children, especially, are at risk. Given the conditions, special education in this respect becomes one of the instruments of survival. This is a fact that the traffic police recognizes.
Now, we have among the school children a cadre, what we call as the road safety patrols. Now, the cadets of the road safety patrol are trained by us in traffic control and traffic management. They direct and control traffic just as any other traffic constable on the road. It gives them a sense of leadership. It gives them a sense of control over their own surroundings, and thereby it helps in building up a better personality in them.
It was with the education aspect in mind that the Delhi police evolved the concept of the traffic training park and created the biggest one in Punjabi Bagh. Here, on any day of the week, one might find ranks of uniformed school children all attention as a traffic police official tells them the basics of road safety.
प्यारे बच्चों, आज मैं आपको यातायात नियमों के बारे में कुछ जानकारी देना चाहती हूँ। इसमें जितनी भी सड़क पर दुर्घटनाएं होती हैं, इनमें सबसे अधिक दुर्घटनाग्रस्त होने वाले लोग पैदल चलने वाले ही होते हैं। पैदल चलने वाले जब भी सड़क का लापरवाही से बिना सोचे समझे इस्तेमाल करते हैं।
This introductory lecture begins the process and is of prime importance. These are the fundamental rules of the road. The police staff on the spot, in fact, act as friends and guides to the kids through the various activities that the park incorporates. Cycles are provided for them to get in touch with actually using the roads. The road geometry here is such that most of Delhi's real-life road situations are replicated. Under the watchful eye of the police personnel, the children learn to go by the book, obeying traffic lights, making the appropriate hand signals, even understanding pedestrian behavior. At another location, boarding a bus is a rancorous affair, until words of advice show the way. Gentle admonition disciplines a busload of unruly school children, and the learning process continues. Instruction by policemen is only one of the ways in which the essentials of road safety are got across. Display boards inform visitors about road safety signs, what they mean, what is required when one crops up. The presence of these signs around the park gives one practical knowledge of their use. The park also shows some safety films and holds competitions which promote road sense. They also promote the park itself. For, let's face it, kids won't learn unless they enjoy themselves in doing so. The park has a number of devices to let them have fun while they learn. A toy train chugs its way around the park. The buildings are dwarf versions of actual structures. The Delhi railway station in particular is neatly reproduced. Then there are the elements of any child's fascination. A Nat fighter plane and a helicopter, which was actually flown into place at the park. Little wonder then that the park is so popular.
In the process of making it interesting, we have developed a lot of fun and games which attract the children. Like you must have seen in our Punjabi Bagh Traffic Training Park, we have the mini train. We have avenues for some other games. We have got castles built there. We have got tunnels. We have got various aspects of interest that attract children to the place. Now, for West Delhi particularly, it has become an amusement park. People bring their children there, take them for a ride in the mini train, and this becomes not only an outing but an educational outing where the children go through all the drills of normal traffic scenario as would be seen on a road with heavy traffic, but minus the traffic here.
Being popular is nice, but it's being useful that's important. Like DCP Pereira says, the park's effectiveness only the future will display. But at least a sizable group of school children do benefit from the traffic police's work. The road safety patrol, for example.
अगर सड़क पर पटरी ना बनी हो तो सड़क के दाहिने किनारे पर आओ ताकि सामने से आने वाली गाड़ियों को आप अच्छी तरह से देख सको और अपना बचाव कर सको.
Now the cadets of the road safety patrol are trained by us in traffic control and traffic management. They direct and control traffic just as any other traffic constable on the road. It gives them a sense of leadership. It gives them a sense of control over their own surroundings, and thereby it helps in building up a better personality in them. Now, apart from that aspect, they get to know, they learn all the rules of the road, how the movement of vehicles has to be controlled, what are the geometrics, engineering aspects, and the intricacies of vehicle movement, coordination, judgment. All these things are taught to them so that they are able to make their own judgment in directing and controlling traffic. Appeal to every soul who comes to these places, because this is your place. This is for your children. You know, use it in the best manner that you can, so that your children and the citizens of the city benefit through this. And do not dirty it. Do not throw garbage. Do not throw waste in these places. Keep it clean so that everyone else who comes also can enjoy it as much as you have enjoyed it.
To the schools they come and go, and another group of school children prepares to learn more about road safety. Maybe the future will show that parks like these will make Delhi's roads safer to walk and drive on. Next week, a joyride down the railroads of the past and the making of a diamond built for flight. This week, take a train journey through history at the Rail Transport Museum and watch nimble hands convert paper and wood into kites of glorious designs. Big wheels never die. They just stop rolling. If they're lucky, the last stop for them is the Rail Transport Museum. The museum is a repository of some of the most beautiful things that have been on Indian rails. One of them stands guard near the entrance, welcoming visitors in. The superb condition of its preservation belies its age and is the norm here. This excellent state of repair, for example, is also seen in the fire engine, which used to do guard dog duty from 1915 to 1960 for the State Railway of His Exalted Highness the Nizam of Hyderabad. The metal is burnished and gleaming. The lights look as though they would come on at the flick of a switch. Even the serpentine hosepipe is in place, intact and whole. The mixture of quaintness and authenticity is such that all that is required is a sign saying, "In case of fire, break glass." In another enclosure not far away stands the Fairy Queen, as ethereal as its name. It is the earliest preserved locomotive in India, having been built in 1855 in Leeds. For more than 50 years, this magnificent machine trundled the tracks of the East Indian Railway till, in 1909, it was gracefully retired out of service. Facing the Fairy Queen is an engine that's only half an engine, an A48 Indian State Railway Standard. It was born in 1891. Now it stands sanctioned for use as an instructional model. Its bared heart reveals the intricate mechanisms that make these juggernauts tick. The outdoor section of the museum has been constructed not only to let these sleeping trains lie, but also to replicate the equipment that once let them run. Signal posts have been duplicated, along with the controls that operate them. Rail tracks crisscross across the grass. Points, too, have been created and can actually be used to shift rails. There is also, among all these stationary engines and coaches, one that runs. The toy train. Traverses a circular route past all its big brothers, and a ride on it is like a guided tour through the railroads of history. Let's take that guided tour. The first landmark is a shiny black engine, looking like new. But that's the last thing it is. The F1734 is the first engine to have been built in India, made in Ajmer in 1895 for the Rajputana Malwa Railway. The track is then taken over by a series of coaches which have seen distinguished occupants. The salon used by the Prince of Wales, later King Edward VII, in 1876, is decorated with his personal monogram. The Maharaja of Mysore's state salon from the turn of the century initially cost 29,500 rupees to make, a fortune in those days. The all-white viceregal dining car, built in 1889 for the Bombay, Baroda and Central India Railway. Further down the line is another relic of royal blood, a special monorail built for the princely state of Patiala. Its one-track arrangement needed to be balanced by a smaller wheel on a concrete strip that ran the length of the section on which the monorail travelled. The YCGI 21900 is also a piece with pedigree. It belongs to the class of electric locomotives which heralded the birth of the electrified age in rail travel. Built in 1930 by an English electric subsidiary, it was used by the Southern Railway up to 1967. Two of its more flamboyant contemporaries stand close by. Passenger locos, which operated on the Great Indian Peninsula Railway. These two elder men of the tracks are named Sir Roger Lumley and Sir Leslie Wilson, after luminaries since turned to dust. Our little workhorse takes the bend, passes through a tunnel and over a turntable, and the landscape changes. The engines and coaches are less regal on this side. There are, though, glimpses of the quaint, the oddity. A service engine converted out of a Dodge truck body and definitely showing a resemblance. One of the early versions of cars used on the Bombay Suburban Railway, sporting the appropriate colours, but otherwise far removed from its modern counterparts. A double-decker coach meant for transporting livestock, built with wooden slats like a Venetian blind. A monster mobile crane from the railroad's early days rears its hooked head high above the trees. We're nearing the end of our trip, and as we slow down, a few machines reappear to remind us of the glory that they once bore. A splendid coach, which carried dignitaries along the stretches of the Oudh-Rohilkhand Railway, with a cage at one end to keep chickens in. A 6-car armoured train, which was fitted out with searchlights, Maxim machine guns, and a 12-pounder artillery piece, and used during World War I by the British Army. Our toy train draws to a stop close to an engine which almost looks like a toy itself. Named Ramgoti, this endearing little thing stands forlorn before a signal, maybe waiting for that grand day when it might once again be asked, "Come forth." A narrow, crowded street in the congested colonies across the Yamuna. When the rains come, bad drainage means that the water collects on the roads. None of this reflects the special character of this lane, but you only have to look up from the mud to realize it. Every other shop lining the street sports diamonds of vivid color. This is kite land, and much of the activity that goes on here is engendered by the making, testing, and buying of kites and charkis. Color runs riot here, in both the designs of the kites and the threads and the reels. Among the signs here is that of Shan, the latest in generations of kite makers. The shop is representative of others here. Stacks of kites lie in colorful chaos, as yet distant from their flights of glory. There are ones on display, a demonstration of the versatility of hue and form that will soon dot the skies. Empty charkis show their skeletal ribs, while others stand clothed in manja of variated shades. In the middle of all the mess, trained hands work industriously at creating these potential monarchs of the skies, out of the raw material of chiffon-like paper and frail lengths of wood.
ये कमानी ट्रेडर का जो फट्टा है वो तो कलकत्ते से आता है.
The wood for the thaddas comes from Assam. It is made into strips and then supplied here, where it's put on the kite. Paper comes from various places, from Calcutta as well as Ballarpur. Once the season here gets over, it begins in Ahmedabad and Jaipur. Then comes Meerut, followed by Aligarh. When the season in Aligarh finishes, Delhi is ready to start again. In other words, there's kite flying 12 months of the year. The first job is the cutting. Then the designs are put on and the thadda is stuck. Following this, the cord is strung around the edges and the kite is ready. A closer, more detailed look at the actual process of a kite being made reveals that there's more to it than what Shan says. To begin with, the shape of the kite is cut out of the paper using a cardboard template. Additional elements of design are incorporated on this basic shape, using other pieces of paper. The corresponding bits of the base paper are first cut out to maintain balance. Once the design is ready, the cross sticks, called thaddas, are pasted on. Then the four edges of the kite are threaded to provide it stiffness and to prevent it tearing in gusts of wind. After that, all that remains is to do the final gumming and to add the last few components which will give it strength and stability. There are many difficulties. It's delicate work. There's always the danger of the paper tearing. Even the slightest rough handling can finish a kite. As for transporters, what do they know about their cargo? Yes, this is delicate work. But the sure hands of the workers in Shan's factory make it seem all so easy. Here, it's like an orchestrated mass production unit at work. At lightning speed, each lifeless sheet of paper is converted into a diamond that will flash and dance in the breeze, straining at its leash of colored thread. Next week, a shelter where every dog has his day. The beauty of an activity once called royal, and a legend that makes pots grow on trees.